All right. Well, let's review a bit. And this review page with 9 questions, this kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of our study. Because we're now getting into the final leg of our journey here. And I do want to apologize that we're having printer problems and I seemed to run out of time this week. So I have things prepared to go with you, but I don't have it on the pages. I'll get it to you next time. But that being said, let's review what we have done in the last several weeks and kind of prime ourselves for the last leg of our journey here. So, you can either use your cheat sheets or not, but the Hebrews called the place of the dead what?
I know, like 2 weeks and I lost. Sheol.
Good. Yeah. Sheol. Very good.
That was on the tip of my tongue, too. I know.
Sheol. That's right. Sheol. Well, the Greeks called the place of the dead. It's the name of the god of the underworld, if that helps. Hey, Don. Morning, brother. Come on in. Would you hand him that last one there? Thanks. We just started our review. What did the Greeks call the place of the dead? Hades.
Hades. Say hell.
Yeah.
Hades?
Yeah. Now, in your translations, often that's translated as hell. To me, that's an unfortunate thing, because in Western civilization, we have an idea of hell. And mostly from Dante's Inferno, just writhing bodies and fire and agony. Which there was indeed fire in Hades, but it wasn't all of that. And in fact, we talked about everyone, no matter righteous or unrighteous, everyone went to this place of the dead, Sheol or Hades. But remember, as Jesus told that story of Lazarus and the rich man, not everyone was in the same situation in this place of the dead. So remember, the Lazarus poor guy who had been righteous was in Abraham's bosom in a place of comfort, while the rich guy who was greedy and nasty, he went down to a place of torment. So that's why calling it hell is really not clear, because if you hear the word hell, you're just thinking of the agony and torment, when that wasn't all there was to it. But now let's get to question 2. That was the case before Jesus' work. Everyone went to Sheol. Since Jesus' mortal work was accomplished, where do the spirits of the righteous now go after death?
Heaven.
Yeah, heaven itself now. The wicked will still go to Sheol. That's still taking people every day. But this is different now. Jesus accomplished something, and there's a seismic shift. All who belong to him actually get to enter heaven itself now. What? That's huge. Number 3. What is the difference between the resurrection and resuscitation?
One's spiritual, one's physical.
Well, actually, both fit well. Actually, you're technically right. But both of them involve an actual physical body, being brought to life. So what's the main difference between being resurrected and being resuscitated?
Resurrection is coming back as an immortal, and resuscitation is you return as a mortal.
Good. So resuscitation is temporary, right? You come back as you were. You're just not dead now. And that's Lazarus, that's Jairus' daughter, that's the widow's son in Nain. We see those things have happened in the Bible. We've seen them happen in modern times. The difference with resurrection, and by the way, Jesus is the only one who's experienced it so far, is that you, as you just said, it's permanent. And you're not the way you were before. You are a glorified, immortal person now. Indestructible. Now, Jesus is the only one so far, but number 4, the question is, who will be raised at the resurrection? Who gets to be resurrected?
Everyone will be.
That's right.
Oh,
Everyone. Not just the righteous. Everyone who's ever lived will be resurrected, will become immortal. The big difference is what happens once they're resurrected, right?
The judgment.
The judgment.
Yes. So everyone will get that new body. The question is, what will they experience in that new body? It'll either be eternal life or eternal condemnation. the second death. So people will not be snuffed out, but you couldn't really say they'll be alive either. They'll be experiencing death forever, which is, don't want to think about that. Number 5. Let's get to some good news here. List 5 sights or sounds that we expect. No, it doesn't have to be 5, but list some sights or sounds that you expect to experience when Jesus returns.
Horns.
Yes, the final trumpet. Woohoo! That's going to be crazy. So loud. What else?
In the cloud.
Yes, he'll be coming in the clouds. That's right.
Doesn't he shout as well?
Yes, Jesus gives a loud command. Who else's voice are we expecting to hear?
Michael's?
An archangel, yeah. Probably Michael, who knows. But an archangel. Michael's the only archangel we know of specifically. Jewish tradition and other traditions hold there's like 7 or some other number, but specifically we only know about Michael being an archangel.
Will come in blazing fire.
Yeah, that's a big one. Oh boy. Now, we don't know what that looks like, but we do know he'll come in glory, which all these things probably mean that. This is probably the glory. Who will come with Jesus? Who will accompany him?
Is it all the angels?
The angels, yeah, they're going to flood the skies, invasion force. Holy cow. But also, the spirits of the righteous will come. Remember, they're coming to get their new bodies. They're itching to come get them, so they're come back so that Jesus can give them those new bodies. This is going to be intense. Now, the one negative here is that there will be the weeping and wailing of those who dread his coming, because they'll realize they were wrong. And they're going to probably tell from the blazing fire that this is going to end badly for them. Number 6, let's go to the back of that page there. When Jesus comes or returns, he will come like a blank.
Thief in the night.
A thief in the night, very good. And remember, that doesn't mean that no one will know it happened. What that means is he won't announce ahead of time when he's coming. Just like a thief comes unexpectedly, so will Jesus. So he'll come like a thief, just as destruction came unexpectedly on the world in the days of...
I always think of Elijah when they say the days of...
Oh, that song, yeah.
That song. Used to sing that.
Well, Jesus... What is it?
Armageddon.
No, it's the name of a person. The
Oh,
days
okay.
of Noah.
Okay.
This is, and he would say this in a few of the Gospels. In one of the Gospels, he also brings up Lot. But just like it happened in the flood came, the only person expecting it was Noah and his family, because God told them and they listened. But nobody else cared. They were just carrying on with business as usual. Same with the city of Sodom. When Lot was being rescued, no one cared. They didn't know. They were just doing what they do. And then all of a sudden... So that's going to be true of Jesus' return as well. Number 7, Jesus will come when it's time for God to blank all things. This was from the book of Acts when Peter was speaking to his fellow Jews. When it's time for God to blank all things.
Renew.
Pretty much. Restore is the word in the NIV, but renew is good too. And both of those speak of bringing it back. So basically we have to realize God's not going to just start something brand new that was never here before. What he's doing is restoring things to as they were meant to be. That doesn't mean it's going to be exactly like it was. It just means he's not scrapping everything that he did before and saying, well, let's make them mutants or something. We're going to be human. The world's going to be the world. It'll be better and different. But he's renewing it. He's not chucking it all to start over with something else. Number 8. When Jesus comes, he will repay each person according to their... Deeds. Good. But at the same time, he will expose their...
Sins.
Sins. Transgressions.
Sin.
Well, we would say, let's get a little more specific, because deeds could be that too. So it's their motives.
Their motives?
Motives, yeah.
Okay.
So now you could say that different ways. We looked at that one text in, I think it's Corinthians. He will expose the hidden things and expose the motives of men's hearts. So remember, the reason that's important is Jesus is the only one who can judge this accurately. We can only judge deeds. That's as far as we can go. We can guess at people's motives and might be right, but most of the time we're wrong because we don't know that. But Jesus is the one who's able to judge so accurately because he can actually look at the motives of people's hearts. Which, when we talked about that, that's something that really, it causes you to take very seriously what being a disciple of Jesus really involves. Because we're not just trying to figure out how to act the right way, we're trying to figure out how to be the right people, right? Because you can do the right things for the wrong reasons, and Jesus will know. That's why, remember Matthew 6, we went through that whole Sermon on the Mount. Praying, fasting, giving, if you do it to be seen by men, he said, that's it. You're not going to get honored by God for that. And so that number 8 is a really big part of this life we're living under Jesus. How about number 9? This is really important to me, at least. I think it's important to God too. The fact that we will be blanked to him, and that was on page 10 of your packet, in the blessings for the righteous. The fact that we will be blanked to him when he returns. Do you know what that word is there?
Gathered?
Good, right on. So we will be gathered to him. The fact that we'll be gathered to him when he returns reveals one of his central priorities for his eternal kingdom: community. So he's not going to have a one-on-one audience with us and then move on to the next person. And it's going to be community. Now, again, we'll have time with him, I'm sure, individually, but that's not the whole point of this. It's for all of us to be together with him. That's awesome. Okay. So, of course, we skipped a lot of things in that review, but that touches on a little bit of everything that we looked over. Now, do forgive me if I don't have those papers for you, but we're going to use our Bibles a lot today. So if you don't have one, let me know and we'll get you one. Okay. What I want to do now, and I don't know if we'll get it all done today, what I want to do now is jump into the glimpses for what awaits us in the age to come. And a part of that is looking at what's going to end. What is it about the age, the present age, that needs to come to an end in order for the new age to really come in its fullness? Just to remind you, the reason I started this whole emphasis and study was not so much to try to figure out all the mysteries of end times, but to get us to this step, which is to get a greater vision, and I think an exciting vision, of what your eternal future looks like, because that will determine how we live now. It prioritizes our life now when we have a vision of what God has in mind for us. So first, what has to come to an end in this present evil age for this to really happen? I'm going to just toss out some verses. Again, I had printer problems, so I couldn't print out the verses. So I'll just go in order if that's okay, if everyone wants to read. Don, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4. Barb, Galatians chapter 1, verse 4. And again, I'll try to get all this stuff on paper for you next time. Brenda, Matthew 13, 39 to 41. Cindy, Hebrews 12, 26 to 29. Isaiah 34, 2 to 4, Joanne. I'll take Isaiah 51.
34, what was the...
That was Isaiah 34, verses 2 through 4. So let's start here, and this is just kind of giving us an idea of what God's intentions are for this present world and reality. First couple of verses are just going to set the stage about how the scriptures refer to this present time. Okay, Don, you have 2 Corinthians 4:4.
Okay. Satan, who is the god of the world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand his message. about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God,
So at the beginning there, he refers to Satan as what?
God of the world.
So very literally it says the God of this age. They both basically mean the same thing in that context. But notice, in the way things currently are, there's a lowercase g on that, right? The way things currently are, Satan really does control the systems of this world. Now, that doesn't mean he's in charge of God or anything. He doesn't trump God. That just means as the world operates, it operates his way. And I don't mean nature. I'm talking about human systems, governments, businesses, families. Those things operate Satan's way, primarily. So what we're thinking about now is that when God brings about the new age, what's one thing, crucial difference in how everything will operate? It will not be operated Satan's way. He's the God of this age. And when this age ends, so does his supremacy in the ways things go. He's done once God brings this new age about. Satan's influence is over. Yes! We can't wait for that. Now, of course, it's true that Satan's not to blame for everything. If Satan took a vacation for a week, do you think the world would be peachy keen? No, we're still messed up, okay? So that doesn't solve the whole problem. But oh my gosh, does that deal with so much of the problem? When Satan's influence is eradicated, oh, what a difference that's going to make. Let's look at Galatians 1:4. What does that say?
Okay, to read 3 to 5 because it's all one
Yeah,
sentence.
go for it.
Grace and the peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, who gave himself for our sins to rescue us from the present evil age, according to the will of our God and Father, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen.
So the phrase there is he chose to rescue us from this present evil age. So what kind of age are we living in? Well, evil. And why? Because of who controls it, of who's operating the systems. So we're rescued from this present evil age. Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is, I think, wonderful. Are we rescued from it presently, or is he saying we're going to be rescued from this present evil age? Could you read that phrase again, just so we can hear
Who
the...
gave himself for our sins to rescue us from the present evil age.
So Jesus' purpose in sacrificing himself was to rescue us from this present evil age. As you understand it, are we rescued or are we going to be rescued?
I think we are, if we believe
Okay.
and obey him.
So if we're in this present evil age still, in what way are we rescued from it?
We have the option of living like Jesus or living in the devil's ways.
And so now that's why I get all goosebumpy, because this is what Jesus and John the Baptist came to announce. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of the heavens, has crashed into this present evil age while it's still going and opened up this whole new option for everybody. You can now enter the new age ahead of time by submitting to the king, the real king. Because remember, this God of this age is a usurper. He's a pretender. He's wearing this tin crown acting like he's king, and everyone's like, oh, you must be king. And this is all a charade. And so, Brenda, you're exactly right. And Don, you're right. This is a reality now because we have been given, and I love the way Paul puts it in Colossians, we've been rescued from the dominion of darkness and been brought into the kingdom of the Son God loves. Yes, that's the rescue from this present evil age. Unfortunately, because the present evil age is still here, that means we will suffer for it. And that is what Jesus said from the very outset. Remember, in the part of the Beatitudes, the last blessings went to whom? Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Why is it, and that was, by the way, true in the Old Testament too. Why is it true that those who submit to God suffer? It's because they don't fit. Peter says they're strangers and aliens and exiles. Why? Because the God of this age has created a system, and we just don't fit in that system. We're exactly against that system. And we cannot wait to finally fit, to finally be home, where our way of life is the way of life. right? We should feel very out of place in this age. We should feel like we're just weird. And if we don't feel weird, that's what Jesus was getting at in Luke's version of the Beatitudes. Because remember, in Luke's version, there's the blessed are, but then there's woe to you. He had both the good and the bad in Luke's version. And in Luke's version, it's woe to you when everyone speaks well of you. Because that's how they treated the false prophets. That's how they treated. And why? Because if no one has a problem with you, that means you're going along with everything everyone else does. You're not rubbing anyone the wrong way. And so this is a really important part of this thing. If we understand we're part of a present evil age, it gives us a vision of something is hugely different about the age to come. And it's good. It's going to be good. This one's a bit of a review. We've seen this before. But let's get a refresher in Matthew 13, 39 to 41.
I'm going to start with 37.
Okay.
He answered and said to them, He who sows a good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, but good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of this age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
That's intense. At the end of the age. And the God of this age is included in what he said there. Satan and all of his forces, human and spiritual. The angels of God will be sent out by their commander-in-chief, Jesus, and they will pluck out of this created order everything that's wicked. Everything. All the causes of wickedness plucked out. And what will, according to Jesus, what was his illustration? Where are they going to be thrown?
Into the fire.
Fire. And he made, I think, a beautiful metaphor of the crops. And he had told that story of good crops, and while the good seed had been planted, the enemy came in and planted his weeds, the tares. And the servants of the landowner came and said, kind of as they started growing, Master, didn't you put good seed in there? What's with all these weeds? And he said, oh, my enemy did that. Do you want us to go pull out those weeds now? Do you remember what the master said?
Don't pull them because you'll pull up the good with the bad.
So when did he say, let's do that? When did he say, let's wait to do
the harvest?
Wait till the harvest, till everything's matured, when the time is full come. And by the way, that parable, we're not going to it now, but that is one of the greatest answers to the question, why does God allow evil? And the punchline is, because if he tried to root out evil now, he would remove so much of what he wants to do to change people.
Those that give a chance to save those.
Yeah. If you take out the persecutor Saul, because he's evil and hurting your people, you don't get the Apostle Paul. Right? If you take out the denier Peter or Simon, you don't get the Apostle Peter. All the way through, if God decided to eliminate evil as soon as it popped up, we're all dead. We're all gone. So if you ever wonder, why does God allow evil? This is one of the immense illustrations Jesus gave us. Because he knew people, if Jesus comes announcing, the kingdom of God has come. And all the Jews who hear that are like, what? There's still evil everywhere. What are you talking about? This was his parable to explain. No, don't think that just because evil's still going on, that the kingdom hasn't really come. God's just not going to root it out yet. So that parable is pretty awesome. But anyways, yes, when the age that we're living in ends, that's a picture of what is going to shift. God will personally ensure through his angels that it's removed one by one by one. Oh, what a difference that's going to make. It's going to be huge. Okay, this is a really big picture vision of what God has in mind for this creation. Hebrews 12, 26 to 29. Joanne, if you have that.
When God spoke from
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. His voice shook the earth, but he makes another promise. Once again, I will shake not only the earth, but the heavens also. This means that all creation will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things will remain. Since we are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping Him with only holy fear and awe. For our God is a devouring fire.
So, and he was quoting a prophecy. At the bottom of your page, Cindy, does it say where that quote comes from that he makes there? Should be from Haggai.
Where?
Like at the bottom of your Bible page, does it tell you where the quote comes from in the Old Testament?
Let's see. No.
Haggai
I
something?
don't see. Oh, yeah, 2:6.
So the Hebrews writer is quoting from Haggai 2:6, where what he exactly says there, that God decided one more time, and that's the key phrase that the Hebrews writer zones in on. One more time, I'm going to shake this whole place. And the idea of the shaking, and this is very common in the prophets, the shaking is like the shaking of a tree. Why would you shake a tree? What's that about?
Get the fruit to fall.
Yep. And so the idea is I'm going to shake this stuff one more time. A final shaking to separate what is good from what is wicked. I'm going to do it one more time, and then I'm going to be done shaking. Everything that's left will be unshakable. It's going to be permanent. And so we're actually going to look at a few more Old Testament texts that speak to that. What is that shaking that he's talking about there? So now, sorry, Joanne. Isaiah 34, 2-4.
The branch of the Lord. In that day, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land will be pride and glory of the survivors in Israel. Those who are left in Zion, who remain in Jerusalem, will be called holy. All who are recorded among the living in Jerusalem. The Lord will wash away the filth of the women of Zion. He will cleanse the bloodstreams from Jerusalem by a spirit of judgment and a spirit of fire.
That doesn't seem to match what I thought it was. Did you read Isaiah 34?
No.
Oh. Sorry.
Isaiah 4.
Isaiah 34, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Isaiah 34.
Oops, guess I'm not hearing it all.
Yeah, so this is Isaiah 34,
2-4.
verses 2-4, yeah.
Well, the Lord is angry with all the nations. His wrath is upon all the armies. He will totally destroy them. He will give them over to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out. Their dead bodies will be sent up in a stench. The mountains will be soaked with their blood. All the stars of the heaven will be dissolved, and the sky rolled up like a scroll. All the starry host will fall, like withered leaves from a vine, like shriveled figs from a fig tree.
No, yeah, thank you. Now, notice he talks about first the armies, and there was a specific national situation he was dealing with there. But then the language shifts to this, like, natural calamity of all sorts. The mountains are involved, drenched in blood, and then the starry things are falling, and the sky is dissolving. Like, what is going on here? And he talks about, like, figs, right? And that's going to come up in other prophecies. So that describes the shaking of the whole natural order. Something huge happens. And in Isaiah 51:6, we see something similar. Lift up your eyes to the heavens, look at the earth beneath. The heavens will vanish like smoke. The earth will wear out like a garment, and its inhabitants die like flies. But my salvation will last forever. My righteousness will never fail. Now, you say that the heavens vanish like smoke. That's like extreme, because the heavens have been around as long as anything's been around, right? Like, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. They're permanent. The earth is permanent, and the scriptures speak of things like that. So when God says that the earth and the heavens are just kind of done now, you're like, what? We can't conceive of that. They've always been. as far as we can tell. Of course, God started at some point, but in all of human experience, these things have always been here. And so this is another one of those pictures of the shaking. Something huge is going to be shifted in this new creation. Okay, 2 more about the end of the age, and then we're going to get to the goody stuff about the new age. 2 Peter 3, 7 to 12, if you'd read that. And then, Barb, Revelation 6, 12 to 14. So these are more just visions of how God's going to bring an end to this old age. Or the present age, I should say. So 2 Peter 3, 7 to 12, Revelation 6, 12 to 14.
And by the same word, the present heavens and the earth have been stored up by fire. They are being kept for the day of judgment, when the ungodly people will be destroyed. But you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. A day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. The Lord isn't really being slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he is being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. But the day of the Lord will come as unexpected as a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and every element themselves will disappear in fire, and the earth and everything on it will be found to deserve judgment. Since everything around us is going to be destroyed like this, what holy and godly lives you should live. Look forward to the day of God and hurry it along. On that day, he will set the heavens on fire, and the elements will melt away in the flames.
What? Now, the first time, just prior to that reading, he reminded them that God judged the world with water, right? Back in the days of Noah. And he promised he would never do that again. Which, on the one hand, is very comforting. But then we find this out, and we're like, oh. So we're safe from water, great, but the fire's coming. What do you think fire? What's the significance of fire? Why would God use fire to bring an end to the old age?
Cleansing. It gets rid of all the evil, like the Indians used to do it when they buried their dead. They burn them. So if there was any, part of it was to go to heaven, but what do you want to call it? Sicknesses, it destroys them.
Yeah.
Well, like animals, dead animals, you burn them to get rid of them.
Yeah, if there's disease or something.
Yeah.
And that's the only way they knew how. I mean, they didn't understand germs and stuff, but. And I was taking a ride with Bill Granville through the woods, and he was just talking about the woods and how they all work and stuff. And he was talking about how they clear it sometimes to let the underbrush grow and get new life in there. And then we saw a thing about a road being closed off for some section of time because they were doing some controlled burning. Mm-hmm. And so we got talking about that. And the fact that not all forest fires are bad. Mm-hmm. In fact, they happen naturally for a reason, I think. God designed it this way. Because when things are burned to that extent and to that level, how long does it take for things to start growing, right? It gives you a whole reset. And it's not like it's all scarred forever. It's just that top layer so that what's underneath has this new chance to grow.
Puts nitrogen back in the earth.
Mm-hmm, yeah. The nutrients change.
The redwoods, don't they have to burn before they recreate?
The pine.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Is that true?
They have to have a certain temperature for them to release the seeds out of the cones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a picture. It's a parable. When God comes to burn things, it will not be to annihilate everything. He really is going to renew, which means, in fact, in the Greek language, there's at least two words for new. One of them has to do with like a new kind, and one of them has to do with like new in time. So a puppy is new because it just showed up, like it's brand new. Look at that thing. But you could have a new hairdo, where your same hair, it just changed. It's different now. It's a new kind of hairdo. And the word used for the new creation coming is not new in time, like, oh, he just did a whole new one. It has to do with a different kind. And so this is totally just an image I have, but I have an image of God just, and that of course would be fire, but just, it's still there. But he just cleanses it so thoroughly and deeply so he has a chance to bring out its newness. So we shouldn't be imagining that here's the universe that exists now and God's just going to just chuck it to the garbage and he's going to turn around to this other side of eternity and do a whole new universe over here. No, it's the universe that is. It'll just be thoroughly cleansed and started again. Restored to what he wanted it to be. So that's really intense picture, but I think it's a beautiful one ultimately when you know what God's up to. Let's hear about Revelation 6. This is a picture also of the shaking we heard about earlier.
I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to the earth as late figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll, rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place.
Now that's only in chapter 6 of Revelation. And if we ever get to study Revelation, which I hope we can, this is one of those indicators that Revelation is not a linear story from beginning to end, which a lot of people read that way. But when you read that description in chapter 6, out of 22, you might get the idea the story ends a couple of times in the story. It's like it's being retold a couple of times. That's a picture of the shaking that Cindy read about in Hebrews. He even said that, like figs fall when you shake the tree. And read again that section, because listen to all of the elements he's talking about. Think of all of the natural things being described here.
There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. The stars fell to earth as late figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll, rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place.
All of those things that were just mentioned are supposed to be permanent. Like, all of that stuff. The sun, every single day. It does what it does, right? The moon, I mean, you don't always see it, but it's always there. And the stars, the sky, the mountains, the islands, they're supposed to be there always. And here's that vision of the shaking. God says, nope. What you thought was permanent, I'm about to shake it all up one more time. Last shake. Oh gosh. So that's the end of the present age. And it goes from the spiritual, the evil element of it being dealt with, as we read about at first, and then also the natural is going to be dealt with, a final shaking. Now all that would actually be really sad if that were the end of it. He's done. He's putting it all away now. But remember, this is all a means to an end. And we're going to get into some really good stuff now about what the new age is going to look like. So, let's get a few visions of this. Let's see. Let's begin at a pretty big, zoomed out picture, but I think it sets the stage really well. Let's all turn to 1 Corinthians 15 together.
What was it, Brian?
1 Corinthians 15. There is a little nugget hidden in, because this whole chapter, 1 Corinthians 15, is about the resurrection of Jesus and why it's absolutely crucial that that's true, and that means everyone is going to experience a resurrection. But there's a little section here tucked away that is so, like when I first read it, and I was like, this has been here the whole time? When I first started to really dig into it, it blew me away. So we're going to start reading in verse 23. And Brenda, if you're willing to, would you read 23 to 28?
But each one in his own order, Christ the firstfruits, afterward those who are Christ's at his coming. Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom of God to the Father, when he puts an end to all rule and all authority and power. For he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death. For he has put all things under his feet, but when he says all things are put under him, it is evident that he who put all things under him is expected. Now when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him who put all things under him, that God may be all in all.
Okay, so picture this. Okay, we've already learned in previous studies. In Psalm 110, verse 1, God promised his Messiah, "You will reign at my right hand until I make all your enemies your footstool." Do you remember looking at that? So that's the payoff that we're waiting for. Jesus is right now at God's right hand. He's reigning, just like God promised, until all God's enemies are put under Jesus' feet. And that happens when Jesus returns, like we just talked about. That's the end of the age right there. When that's accomplished, notice what Paul said. He will, in the end will come, he hands over the kingdom to God the Father after he's destroyed all dominion and authority. When he's done this, then the Son himself will be made subject to him who put everything under him, so God may be all in all. So as I'm picturing this, I see the entire universe that's left. All eyes on Jesus. He's the star of the show. He put all the enemies under his feet. He's the conquering king. All of his people and his angels have joined him in this. So the spotlight's on Jesus. He is the conquering hero. While the spotlight's on him, and he's got crown after crown after crown after crown on his head, which is a really weird thing they did in the ancient world, but it's cool too. Anytime a king conquered another kingdom, they would meld the conquered crown onto the conqueror's crown. And so you would have multiple crowns all blended together into one big one to show that you conquered. It's kind of crazy. Pictures are weird looking. But anyways, this is kind of an image of what Jesus has. He's conquered all kingdoms. They're all his now. So he, as the star of the show, with this massive, conqueror's crown on, turns his attention and everyone else's attention to God the Father, and he goes before the Father and he lays the crown at his feet and he bows himself before Father. And that's what he says here. When he's done this, the Son himself will be made subject to him who put everything under him, and God will be all in all. I love this picture because this means Jesus will gladly say to Father, "This was all for you. I did all this for you." Now, Jesus was the star of the show because God wanted him to be. And that's what's so beautiful. God wants Jesus to be the center of attention. And guess what? Jesus wants Father to be the center of attention. They love each other that deeply. Neither of them are vying or jockeying for any of this. They want it for each other. So God chose to put Jesus in the center of the attention. And at the end of everything, when Jesus has done all that God told him to do, he's going to turn it right back to Father and say, "It's all yours now, Dad." Now, that doesn't mean that Jesus stops ruling. All that means is that he will have done the right thing. He will have acknowledged to the entire universe he's the true ultimate high king, and I honor him too, right? Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That, brothers and sisters, is the vision of the new age that covers everything. Remember where we started. Who's the God of this age?
Satan.
In this vision, what do you see? There will be one God, king, ruler, acknowledged by everyone, including God's own Son, and all will be able to acknowledge who the God of the age really is. So that's kind of the big picture. Oh, I love that. That's so amazing. By the way, if you've developed a view of God where Jesus and God the Father are the exact same person, that's something that you're going to have to struggle through. How do you make sense of that? They're actually distinct persons in the divine head, but their interaction is so beautiful. It's so wonderful. They both want what's best for each other. So let's take a few other visions, and for a really big vision, we're going to turn to Isaiah 65. Starting in verse 17, your heading might tell you that, New Heavens and New Earth, is what it says in the NIV. So Isaiah 65, starting in verse 17 through verse 25. Cindy, would you read that for us?
Sure. Look, I am creating new heavens and a new earth, and no one will even think about the old ones anymore. Be glad, rejoice forever in my creation. And look, I will create Jerusalem as a part of my happiness, how people will be a source of joy. I will rejoice over Jerusalem and delight in my people, and the sounds of weeping and crying will be heard in it no more. No longer will babies die when only a few days old. No longer will adults die before they have lived a full life. No longer will people be considered old at 100. Only the cursed will die that young. In those days, people will live in the houses they built and eat the fruits of their own vineyards. Unlike the past, invaders will not take their houses and confiscate their vineyards. For my people will live as long as trees, and my chosen ones will have time to enjoy their hard-won gains. They will not work in vain, and their children will not be doomed to misfortune. For they are people blessed by the Lord, and their children too will be blessed. I will answer them before they call to me. While they are still talking about their needs, I will go ahead and answer their prayers. The wolf and the lamb will feed together. The lamb will eat hay like a cow, but the snakes will eat dust. In those days no one will be hurt or destroyed on my holy mountain. I, the Lord, have spoken.
Okay. That is a breathtaking picture that, apart from faith, makes no sense at all, right? So again, this is often seen to be what people picture the millennium reign. That's something that comes up in Revelation. I see that differently than a lot of people do. But notice what he begins with in verse 17 is a statement he's going to create a new heavens and new earth, right? We're not talking about before the destruction of the old. We're talking about after the new thing is created. What can we expect? What's a vision of what we have to look forward to? Number one, I love. Look at verses 18 and 19 here. Be glad and rejoice forever in what I will create. I will create Jerusalem to be a delight and its people a joy. So think of that. First delight, then joy, right? The city will be a delight, the people will be a joy. Now look at verse 19. I will rejoice over Jerusalem and take delight in my people. He said the same thing, but he inverted it. I'm like, why are you repeating yourself? That's how you emphasize this. First, Jerusalem will be my delight, the people my joy, the people my delight. Jerusalem is my delight, the people my joy. It's like, how can he say it any more fully than this, right? First thing I want us to realize about the coming age is that it will make God supremely happy. And if you love God, you're very happy for him, right? Because this present evil age, I think God's a happy God. But he has a lot of reasons to not be happy when he looks at what's going on. Because, the God of this age, that's why. And everyone that follows the God of this age. And they're wrecking the joint. And there's so much pain. There's so much sadness and all that. Tragedy. And so just take a hold of those words that he uses for himself. But it's not just he that will be delighted and happy. It's a language of it will be just joyful for people, for everyone involved. There will be delight for all. No more sound of weeping and crying. We'll hear about that later in the New Testament too. Notice verse 20. No more babies born and dying. Oh my gosh. Now this raises some questions because according to what Jesus said at the resurrection, there's no marrying and giving in marriage. As far as we know, there's no procreation. Is that what he's talking about? I don't think so. I don't think he means there's going to be babies, but they just won't die. It just means we won't have to experience that tragedy anymore. And then, an old man, there won't be any more people who don't live out their years. People who die too young. If someone dies at 100, they'll be thought a mere child. And again, I don't think this means there will be death. I just think he's trying to paint a picture for us. You don't have to worry about this longevity problem. In fact, he said you're going to live as long as trees, and that's probably an understatement because we're going to live eternally. But all the things we're used to worrying about in this present age, what is he saying?
No more.
It's not an issue. You don't have to worry about kids dying or people getting diseases at 40 or, whatever. This new age coming is going to be so long, so permanent that you don't have to worry about any of these things. Now, think with me on verses 21 and 22, because if you're picturing our eternal future, this stuff may not come immediately to mind. You might have pictures of clouds and harps and 24 hours in front of the throne just singing. But why does he bring this up? They will build houses and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit. And then he goes on to say, they're not going to build stuff other people live in, plant stuff other people eat. And that was a real problem for Israel, because they kept getting invaded, you know? They built this family home, invaders come in, and these strangers are living in it now. What's up with that? He's saying, no, you don't have to worry about invaders anymore. What you build, what you grow, that's yours. You get to enjoy it. Your kids get to enjoy it, or whoever, you know? Again, having kids isn't a part of our future as far as we know. But I want you to consider this, because this is going to come up in our vision of our overall future. As I'm understanding the Scriptures, our future in the new earth is going to be very much similar to our life as it was intended to be here. Productive, creative, we're building things. I think there will be plants. We'll be growing plants, and there's so many indicators of that. This is one of those. A lot of people think of heaven like that show I think I mentioned before called The Good Place. Food just kind of appears. You know, you just ask this weird automatic lady for something and poof, you've got it right there, because it's heaven, right? And you get everything you want in heaven. And a new earth, there will be work to do. It just won't kill us, and it's not going to be miserable, and we're not going to wake up each day going, here I go again. The way he describes it, it's satisfying. And he says there, you're not going to labor in vain. The work we're going to have to do in our eternal life is going to be good and happy and joyful and satisfying, and our bodies won't grow achy and, oh, my back, I got to go work again, my back hurting. It's going to be life as it was always meant to be. Now, we picture the Garden of Eden, and when you picture the Garden of Eden, do you picture Adam and Eve working, toiling, sweating, working so hard to make things grow? Is that how you picture the Garden of Eden? Now remember,
Before they ate the apple.
right? Who knows what happened to it after that? But that doesn't mean they didn't work. Remember, when God created Adam and Eve, he put them in the garden to do what? To tend to it, right? They had work to do. God always created humans to be productive, because this world takes tending. Now, the curse brought on this hard work thing, and that's what was part of Adam's curse. By the sweat of your brow, you're going to grow stuff, and I'm going to make the earth. You're going to have to work for this, because I'm going to make the earth stubborn. But when the recreation comes, it's not time to kick back and just, angels are putting grapes in our mouths as we lay back or something. No. We're going to be productive like humans were created to be. But we're just going to have to kill ourselves to make it happen. And it's going to be so satisfying. We're going to grow grapes and actually get to enjoy them. By the way, you guys can probably speak to this more than I can. Is it not satisfying to grow something in your garden and then enjoy it? I'm glad God's not going to do away with that. That's an experience I'm glad we get to have forever. Now, this is one interesting question that comes up, because this indicates that we'll be eating in our eternal future. Does that sound weird? Yes. Right? Yeah. I was reviewing some of these quotes. I think this is not a very positive quote, but there is a quote. I was going to look up who it was just to... I'm sure the person said it to be cute, but it wasn't a very respectful thing. Jane Seabrook. Anybody heard of this person? Okay, I don't know either. She wrote, "If there's no chocolate in heaven, I'm not going." Well, yeah, watch yourself, lady. But the sentiment is there. There are things in this world that I wouldn't give it up for heaven, or I wouldn't give up heaven for that. But there are things in this world you're like, boy, God, that'd be great if we could enjoy that. And when you see Jesus in his resurrected body eating with his disciples, isn't that a clue? His resurrected body's okay having food. I think our resurrected bodies will be okay having food. In fact, there's another vision. Keep yourself here. Keep your finger here, because we're going to return to it. But go over to Matthew chapter 8 with me. Another, just an indicator of the food thing.
What was it, Matthew 8?
Matthew 8, yeah. Right after the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus has an interaction with a Roman centurion, a foreigner, a Gentile, a non-Jew. And remember, this is starting in verse 5. The centurion asks Jesus to heal his servant. And he shows an extraordinary faith. He says, Jesus, you don't have to come to my house. Just say the word and it'll happen. I know authority when I see it. Verse 10. Let's see. Joanne, would you read verse 10 through 12?
When Jesus heard this, he was astonished and said to them, those following him, I will tell you the truth. I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their place at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown out into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
So Jesus acknowledges there, in the kingdom's fullness, there's going to be a massive feast. In the book of Revelation, it's called the Feast of the Lamb. It's going to be a banquet for the Lamb, the conquering king. In fact, you stay here. I'm going to go to Isaiah 25 real quick just to read another snippet of this. Isaiah 25:6. On this mountain, Yahweh Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines, right? He's giving his people this vision because he knows that is so good and satisfying to people. He's like, I want to give that to you in the new creation. And then remember, one more indicator. Jesus said to his apostles at the Last Supper, I've been eagerly awaiting to have this meal with you, and I'm not going to take part of this until I get to have it with you in the fullness of the kingdom. He's telling them right there, I'm expecting to have a meal with you, and I'm going to hold off having wine until I can do it with you guys in the kingdom. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. So, one of the questions that raises is, I thought there was no more death in the new kingdom. And in order for us to eat things, they have to die, right? So what's up with that? Well, I think here's one, and this is my speculation, but this is what makes the best sense to me. What I think is going to be true, I don't believe we're going to be eating animals anymore. Because remember, when God first created us, what were we supposed to be eating?
Vegetables, fruits.
Vegetation, right? Yeah. Even before sin came, we would be eating, obviously, and there would be plants eating. Now think about the difference between having to eat animals and their death versus plant life. Blood. It's a totally different thing, right? One of them is the blood. Animals have souls, and I don't mean eternal spirit. I mean the language of the scriptures. The soul is the life force. The soul is in the blood, is what God said. So we will not be eating soulish creatures in the new creation, as far as we can tell. There's no hunting and murdering. In fact, what we read at the end of this is that even animals won't be doing that. Did you notice that at the end of this Isaiah 65 passage? The wolf and the lamb will feed together. And what do lambs eat?
Grass.
The only other way to read this, there's two ways. Either the wolf is eating grass with the lamb, or the lamb is attacking animals with the wolf, right? Like, obviously, the lamb is going to still be eating what it eats, and the wolf is going to join it. And there's this other picture of the lion eating straw like an ox, which tells us we're still going to have these animals that we know to be carnivorous. They're going to be around, which I'm really glad about. I'm so glad there's going to be animals in this new creation. When do we experience a loss of some kind to not have animals around? Oh my gosh. And again, he had them in the first creation. This makes perfect sense that he would still have these in the new creation. The difference is they aren't going to be attacking and mauling and destroying each other or us. They're going to be around eating like they always have, but they're going to be eating things that are renewable with no soul in them. And so to say that there's no death in the new creation, we mean there's no soul death. There's no death of living beings. But plants, there'll be the plant cycle as far as we can, like I'm saying, this is as far as we can tell, the evidence. There'll be crops, things will grow, and then we'll eat them, and then they'll die, and we'll grow those. So that's different.
If you think about the plant life, it has to die for the seeds to be planted again.
Mm-hmm. Or think about a tree. A tree doesn't actually have, there's really no death involved for us to eat fruit, right, off a tree. The tree keeps living. I wouldn't say that the fruit dies when we eat it. It's just, so that's true for the crops that we grow. I mean, corn doesn't just keep living and living. Though, who knows? What if that is true in the new creation? What if the stalk is just there and it just keeps popping out more? I don't know how that's going to work. There's also this vision in Revelation of the trees of life lining a river of life. It's not just one tree of life. And that might be because there's more than 2 people on the planet now. Because remember when Adam and Eve were in the garden, there's 2 of them. There's one tree of life. In the vision of Revelation, there's trees of life lining this river of life, flowing from the throne of God. And what John says is that the fruit on the trees is for the healing of the nations. Wow. And so, again, eating. There's this picture of food, and it's going to be healing, just like fruit does now. Isn't that true? Like if we were to eat the way God designed us to, wouldn't a lot of our issues be solved physically? Mm-hmm. And we all know this, and we still eat junk. But we all know that the research is really clear. If we eat the way God designed us to eat in this world, health would be kind of the norm. It wouldn't be the exception. So anyways, to me, that's fascinating. Like all this stuff, when it began to open up to me what my eternal future looked like, I actually started to become more eager for it, and not just, well, it'll be better than hell. In fact, I don't know if I read this to you before. There's this quote that it's horrible, but I have to admit it kind of resonated. It was actually an Welsh proverb. If there were no hell, no one would worry about heaven. Now, why would the Welsh ever come up with that? Obviously, that's true for a lot of people, or you don't make a proverb out of it, right? Actually, if I'm honest with you, there was a time in my life when I had a very boxed-in vision of what heaven was. I kind of had that vibe, like, it's totally better than hell, so I'll take it. But if you were to ask me, why are you itching for heaven? I don't know if I could have told you. I'm really glad to not go to hell, But the more I started to actually find out about what's awaiting us, I was like, no, even if hell weren't in the picture, I want some of this. This is pretty fantastic. Now, that's also, though, different. Let me just read you another one that is inaccurate about heaven. How about this one? This is actually by Sir Thomas More, which is surprising because I really respect Sir Thomas More. But he said, "The heaven of each is but what each desires." What? And by the way, a lot of people believe that heaven is whatever you want it to be. That's goofy. Heaven's not based on me. Who's heaven based on?
Jesus.
Father God, right? That's what Jesus is going to hand it all over back to the Father. And remember what the Father said here in Isaiah 65. He will create Jerusalem to be a delight and its people a joy. First of all to him, but also to everybody else. So we got to avoid both extremes. Heaven's boring, but it's better than hell, or heaven's whatever I want it to be. No. It's going to be just what God wants, but that's going to be so satisfying to all of us. Let's keep digging into Isaiah 65 here, because this keeps getting better here. So you're going to be productive. You're going to be enjoying food. Your labor will be satisfying and not in vain. You won't bear children doomed to misfortune. By the way, any parent in here knows that's quite a thing to say to somebody. Like, thank you, God. Don't have to worry about our kids. They and their descendants with them. They'll be blessed. Their lives are enlarged and rich and full, and there's joy. All there is joy, right? Look at verse 24. This is something that in the book of Revelation is very clearly touched on in the vision. And we're going to look at that in a minute. Before they call, I will answer. While they're still speaking, I'll hear them. This speaks to God's nearness, right? God's right there. There's no, and in this present age, we have to actually deal with this as a part of our training. We have to feel like there's times where God is not listening. We feel like there's times God's far away, takes him forever to respond to us, if he ever is going to respond to us. The book of Psalms is full of righteous people expressing that very sentiment. Even though they're righteous, they're like, God, where did you go? Why aren't you hearing me? Why aren't you responding? Why aren't you helping? And again, that doesn't mean God isn't hearing or responding. It just means that's our perception. What he's promising here is there will never be that perception again. There's no lag. As soon as you need God, he's right there. As soon as you call out to him, he's on the spot for you. That's how intimately close and near he is in this new creation. Now, this is one thing I wanted to mention to you. This is what we can begin having in this kingdom that we've entered. This is the ahead of time experience we get to have through Jesus. This nearness to God, we don't have to wait for that. But what he was saying is this will be widespread. This will be how it is for everyone in my kingdom. That's the wonder of what Jesus has done for us here and now. We get in on some of this now, right? Now, we're not going to live as long as trees in this present age. We're going to wait for the resurrection for that. But some of these elements, we get to have them now because of what Jesus did. We already looked at the lion and lamb thing. So let's go to the very last sentence here. They, meaning these animals, will never harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain. There's nothing destructive anymore in this new creation. Nothing. Can you imagine? Think if you were to make a list of all the things that have destructive effect in this old age, what would you list? What are some of the things that come to mind? Things that cause destruction.
Tornadoes.
Tornadoes.
Hurricanes, floods, fire.
And they're all going on right now, actually. We're hearing these on the news. Yeah.
Fox eat chickens.
What's that?
Fox eat chicken.
Yes. Germs. Viruses.
Yeah.
People. Hurting each other. That's probably the worst of all because that happens most often. Anything that you can think of that brings harm. War? Oh my gosh, can you imagine a world without any violent protests in cities, right? My gosh. Think of a world where you don't need a police force. What kind of world? Like, is that even possible? Yeah. I mean, animals aren't even harming and destroying, and they're beasts. So think of this. Humans, of course, won't. You won't need that. This is so beautiful, this picture.
Well, how come that right before the last part it says, but the snakes will eat dust?
Good question.
Why is, I mean, you got all this good stuff, and then there's that one, but the snakes are still eating that.
I think there is, I'm glad you asked that, because that question comes up for me too. There's things in here that don't fit the ultimate vision of eternal life that we have. For instance, this thing about infants dying, or you live to 100 and all that stuff. Because birth and death aren't really in the equation, right, in our vision. I think several of the details here are the poetic expression of what to expect. So, for instance, I think speaking of if you die at 100, you're cursed. I don't think that actually means people are going to be died at 100 and they'll be cursed. What I think he's getting at poetically is that you'll just keep living, the living like a tree thing. So there's details in here that if you take them literally, it doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. But I think it's not a literal thing. I think it's a picture. And he's speaking to us in our language, things we know. Mm-hmm. I think that's the same for the dust will eat the serpent's food. Because the serpent has, since the Garden of Eden, represented the work of the enemy. It's represented deception. It's represented hostility. And so what I think he's indicating there is that the power of that, whether you call it Satan or you call it, evil, will be underfoot. They are that. Remember, what does it mean that the serpent eats dust? He's low, right? He's underfoot, and I think that's the poetic way of saying all is well, and this effect, this harm that the serpent represents, it's underfoot. It's not an issue. Right, with that. There's no honor for it. And that's one of the big changes. In this present evil age, wickedness is honored. It doesn't just exist. It's actually celebrated. Like, hurrah! And that's what breaks my heart about some of the issues in our culture. It's not just that it happens. It's always happened. I think one of the shifts that people are seeing in our cultures is not that bad things go on. There's always been homosexuals. There's always been adultery. There's always been profanity. I think what bothers so many people now is that it's celebrated. Mm-hmm. It's hurrah, hurrah. And that, I think, is what's being dealt with here. There's no honor for this stuff. It's underfoot. It's down low. It's shameful, as it was always meant to be. But you're right. If you read it literally, it's like, what's up with that? There's still traces of the old creation in that picture. But as far as I can understand it, I think that's a symbolic picture of that. And we're already at the end of our time. My goodness. If you don't mind, I would like to take one more week by digging into the vision in Revelation. I hope this is encouraging to you and not just academic exercise. Because again, if we can get a hold of what awaits us, at least in my experience, I found out this recalibrated my entire vision of my earthly life. Because what I found out was what I'm doing now will affect that. And I think what we'll start next time is some parables Jesus told that indicate that, and then we'll shift over to Revelation and keep whetting our appetites with that.